So I've gone ahead and booleaned two axles into my wheels. And I did that really simply by creating a cylinder, giving it the same amount of subdivisions as as my wheels have, and then I embedded it right at the center using my snap to point tool. I placed my cylinder right at the same exact point as where the center of the wheels are. And then I just did a union bool. And so this is the result of that series of operations. So because these wheels are, I'm going to keep them as separate meshes. I want to resolve how they're interacting with the body. And so I'm going to do a difference bool of a kind of channel through the body where the wheels are. So let me go ahead first and select my two sets of wheels, and I want to move it up into the body of the xylophone. And I think something like that looks about right. Let me go and turn on my image plane and see. That's a bit high, but I think that will work for what I want to do. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another cylinder. And I'm going to go ahead and go back to my perspective view, working in wireframe. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this around the x-axis, 90 degrees. I'm going to do the same thing that I did when I was creating my axle here. And the first thing I'm going to do is create the channel, and now I'm going to go and line it up here. And I have a point out here on the exterior of my wheel, the vertex here. That is the dead center of this system of wheels and axles. So what I'm going to do is I want to drop this channel, the central point of my channel through my the body here. I want to place that directly in this at the same point of at the same kind of central point that my wheels are at. So I'm going to do that by going to my snap to point tool, and I'm first going to change my pivot point by pressing D and moving my pivot point to that center point of my cylinder. Now, keeping snap to point on, I'm going to move my cylinder to this exterior point of this wheel. And it might be a bit easier to, I really want to pull this out. There we go. Now it's flush onto this face, and now all I have to do is use these two axes, translate arrows to line that up. So now this channel, however big I decide to make it, is sitting in the exact central point that the the wheel axles sit. Let me go ahead and widen this. I'm going to turn off snap to point. And that's exactly how I lined up the axle with the wheel, is exactly what I just did. And I'm going to center this pivot again. I don't want it on the exterior of this cylinder, so I'll go to Modify Center Pivot. Let me scale this down, and I'm going to actually go and work in my side view here, or front view, and use this as my method for scaling this little channel down. And so if I'm thinking about how something like this might be made, there might be, I'm going to eyeball like a 1/16 of an inch around That's a little bit bigger so that the axle can kind of spin freely inside the body here. So now that that's kind of created, let me go back to my perspective view and lengthen this, move it so that it's, I actually want it to extend out from the body. What I'm going to do right now, just so we can actually see what we're doing without the wheels, is to, I'm going to label this back axle and label this. Maybe I'll label axle front. And this one I'm going to label axle back. And I'm going to place these on a new layer. I'm going to name this layer wheels. And I'm just going to turn off visibility there for a moment. So I have this axle, I have this cylinder channel. I can see it a little bit better, and it is extending past my, it's extending past the body here. And I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this for now because I want one for the front. I'm going to move it out of the way. But let me select this cylinder and let me select the body and then the cylinder and go ahead and do a difference bool. And so there we have our, let me go back to shaded mode. So I still have one mesh. There's no problem geometry inside, save, this extra. But as far as this mesh goes, there's no problem geometry inside of it. I can see it better if I go to my wireframe mode, that this still is one continuous mesh. And so now let me turn back on my wheels. Let me move this channel here. If I go to my front view again and snap point on and move this down. Let me frame this up so I can actually see what's going on. So now it's right at that center point. Toggle back out to my perspective view, turn the wheels off again, and I'm going to do one more difference bool. Select the body first, and then this channel, and go up and say Boolean difference. So if I turn my wheels back on, now I have two models. Oh, before I do that, let me select the body here and go to Edit, Delete All by Type History. So now I have three models. I have the front wheels, the back wheels, and the body of my xylophone. Next, I want to create the top form here, and this is also going to be created out of separate sets of geometry. So I don't care how many models make up your final project, just as long as it makes sense in the way that mine does, where you would be able to then 3D print. I don't care if each one's 3D printed in parts, and I don't even care necessarily that this would be very difficult to 3D print the interior of this channel. I just want you to really be able to kind of conceptualize and think about how to 3D model something that has a kind of functionality built into the method in which you've modeled it. So in this case, like I don't just have the wheels. If I don't just have the wheels stuck through this mesh without a kind of opening for the wheels to stick into. There's a kind of thought behind the function of this as a real object. And so that's part of this kind of assignment, is how accurate can you kind of model something? How cleanly can you model, even if it has multiple, even if you have multiple objects for your final object, like how much does the way you've modeled it kind of make sense? So let me go ahead and I'm going to end this one here. I'm going to go up to File, Save, and in the next video I'm going to continue modeling the top.